Last video, I de-googled a Pixel phone. Living with no Google services, no Play Store, no Gmail, and even no Android operating system. Removing such a core functionality of an actual smartphone. Has that actually been a bad decision? Spoiler alert, no, not at all. And I'm never going back to regular Android. A few disclaimers. Even though I am using a de-googled phone, I am technically not 100% de-googled. So let me explain that. Because, well, number one, I still have Google accounts because, you know, I'm making this video on YouTube, so I kind of need one, unfortunately, to actually, you know, upload a video and such. If I don't, let me know, because I'll jump on that immediately. And two, I'm currently going through a bit of a lengthy recruitment process at the moment and can't really risk switching in between different types of emailing services, only because I'm afraid that I'm gonna lose things and miss emails, and it's a bad idea. So I'm just kind of hanging off, but I am switching. It's gonna happen one day. Pretty much, I'm more covering the actual lifestyle change into living de-googled and actually operating in normal circumstances, if you kind of catch the drift. So actually using the phone device, pretty much. All right, we good? Sweet, let's start. So right off the bat, for the uninitiated, all I'm doing is pretty much removing all Google services, including Android, off the phone and replacing it with a Linux-based OS of choice. For me, that was Calyx OS, a very easy to approach Android-esque layout that wasn't as alien as I thought it would be, but familiar, like it looks like a normal phone. And pretty much ease of installing as well. I mean, technically, yeah, the other ones are easier, but in terms of a good first stepping stone into being de-googled, Calyx OS was the best way to go. Now, why am I going to such lengths? Why don't I just buy an old Nokia and get my QWERTY skills up to scratch? Well, yes, but actually no. You see, today we actually need smartphones because today we do more on them than just calling or texting an old mate and having a gas bag too. We do banking, media consumption, gaming, emails, calculators, so much more useful tools that we need that the smartphone has either sucked it back into to become a jack of all trades. But over time, I realized on how much Google and other companies are taking from us without us even knowing, and I mean taking like gigabytes of data, like huge amounts of data each year, going off to either advertisers or other shady companies / other third-party companies that we don't know about. And I'm sick and tired of having Gmaps suggest, did you enjoy your stay at this place, even though I never had my data on nor my location on at the same time, yet I got the did you enjoy your stay type of message. I'm really sick of it, and this is my solution of red pilling myself and unplugging myself from the system. But back to the phone. If I'm removing such a major services from my day-to-day life, does that phone even work, let alone function or turn on? Well, to break down a smartphone to its core of an aspects of what I needed to do, of course other people have different needs, but I'm thinking I'm gonna cover most of what all of us need a smartphone to do. That is basic communications, emails, photography and video, banking, media consumption, and other small needs that are just handy to have. So, let's talk about it. Communication. Nothing has really changed with Calyx OS coming onto my phone, being that the phone icon and the text messages, they work just fine. they work just normally. Like everything worked. My pretty much picked up my provider, being that I'm with Telstra, pretty much showed it up in the top corner, and it worked like a treat. So yeah, it works. Email is kind of the same, just like with the phone dialer, you know, it works as it is. Best recommendations is to download an open source email service, sign up for them, and have an account, and away you go. That's pretty much the best recommendation. Best one I'd suggest is probably Proton. I've got an account with them and it's pretty good. There are paid versions you can get, but they do offer a free account. But I'm in a weird situation where I kinda can't really ditch my Gmail account just as yet. But that is where the answer comes in as an email client. With K9 Email, I can pretty much see every single email that I get through my Gmail account without actually having Gmail. It's pretty good. Setting it up is a little strange. You gotta like authorize it through like Google account security, something or rather, and authorize it as like a third party thing. It's weird, but it works. And pretty much it works as intended. I can pretty much reply, or I can send emails, including having attachments go into. Everything works as just regular emails. On the downside though, with Gmail, I'm used to having it auto sorting from primary to social and promotions. K9 doesn't do that, which is fine. It's kind of a small price to pay. I didn't realize on how much I actually needed it, because it's actually quite handy to have that auto sort and function into Gmail. But it's just a no biggie. I just gotta like swipe away promotions and other stuff into the trash. So, but other than that, it still works. Photography and video. This is going to be a bit interesting because the camera app that comes with Calyx OS is Garbo. It is absolutely Garbo. Don't use it. I mean, if you're in a pinch, sure, like it'll get the job done, but it's Garbo. But the irony is that some mad lad ripped the Google Pixel camera off the Google phones and released it on the internet free to download, which definitely pissed off old daddy Google. But do you think I care? No, I don't. So I managed to sideload the Pixel camera app onto, and my God, now I know what everyone was really talking about when each Pixel phone came out. Everyone was saying that, hey, the camera is amazing and like its color reproduction is great. It's technically not the camera though, because you know, you got a tiny camera and a tiny sensor. It's really just the app replicating those colors and adjusting those like parameters and all the rest of it to create that image. But oh my God, they look good. They look so good, and I understand the hype for it. The quality of the photos are sharp, and with color reproduction being vibrant but not too saturated to my liking, where it doesn't look fake. None of that like AI sharpening to one's face or other that you see on some other phones with different modes and such. It's pretty good, and know that you can actually get raw photos. So if you actually want to like, you know, do some more photo manipulation, of course you're gonna have to drag that off, because I haven't really found an app to actually do photo editing, but we'll get into the app situation a bit later. So you might have to drag it off onto either Photoshop or Lightroom potentially and craft it up. But other than that, like, it takes some pretty damn good photos. And video is great. Well, here's a sample of that. Now this is the audio quality that you would probably expect to hear on the actual Pixel 5 running through Calyx OS. It sounds alright for a smartphone microphone, so it's pretty decent as it is. And the quality itself through the camera is actually pretty good. We've got the stabilization on, so I'm just gonna do a walking test. I'm not really focusing on the actual, like, how I'm moving or the steps that I'm taking. I'm just kind of free balling it with my hands. But if I were to actually just keep in mind and pan myself, it actually looks pretty smooth, not gonna lie. Like, if I'm pivoting my hips, not so much as my feet or anything, to kind of get the pan motion. Walking, I'm not too sure how that's gonna be. And I just stepped in dog poo. Now the only downside to the Google camera, it's not really a downside, I actually don't really mind it. But when you actually take a photo, if you wanted to view that photo, usually you got an icon either at the bottom, either left or right corner, where you can actually, open the gallery up. You can't really do that because you kind of need Google's gallery app, which definitely sucks up data, so that's a no-go. So what you're gonna have to do is like exit out of the camera app or close it entirely, go into the gallery if you wanted to view the photo that you actually got. So you gotta kind of keep that in mind, but at the same time, I don't really tend to do that. I just kind of take for me with photos, I just take photos of like stuff that either like I see in shops. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna buy that. I'm just gonna either get it online or I'll just keep a mental note of it. That's what I do. That's all my gallery is. Media consumption is pretty alright if you're using a browser such as DuckDuckGo. Remember, there is no YouTube app, TikTok, Instagram, or Snapchat, or the Times app. There's none of that on here, so you're gonna have to get a little bit creative with it. But other than that, it still works. Like, I can still load up the YouTube website in browser through DuckDuckGo, and it works. But other than that, I don't really need it, so it's pretty alright. However, if you do want specific apps from Google, this is where we're gonna get into the finicky of it, the Aurora Store. The Aurora Store is an app store where you can get all your Google apps from if you need something super specific. But it's a very hit and miss. Even though the store spoofs a Google account for you and making like a fake one, so you know you can kind of get by and still download Google apps, which is still de-Googled as it is. It's this weird like hole. There's this weird thing. There's kind of like a plot hole with it. It's kind of hard to explain. But yeah, pretty much all the Aurora store does, it kind of like spoofs up a Google account where, along with MicroG, if you wanted to actually connect your Google account to kind of get things communicating between Google but not have it track you, it's so weird. Just keep it on the spoofed account, if all honesty, because then stuff just works. Like, it really does work. But if you ask just about anyone in the community of de-Googling, you're gonna get a bit of a mixed bag of like, oh, I don't recommend it because, you know, you're still downloading the Google app, towards, oh, I do recommend it because, you know, you can get your Google apps and it doesn't track you. In my personal opinion, if you need something like super specific, like if you really like this certain note-taking app on the Google store that you know that either doesn't track you, because there are apps on the Google store that say, hey, we don't track you, we don't do this, we don't send data off to Google, we're like 100% we're either open source as we are, or like we're pretty much closed off to Google and anything else, but your data's safe with us if you want to take that. So you can kind of take a risk downloading from the Aurora store. You just got to be mindful about the apps you download. But if you just straight up download Facebook, Snapchat, and all that stuff again, then you're kind of just back at square one. So you're kind of like re-Googled yourself at this point. But other than that, I really don't mind the Aurora store. I've had to use it because I used it for my banking app. I'll get that into in a bit because it still works. And Spotify, because man, I need my tunes. I'm sorry, I need my tunes. Which is where the F-Droid store comes in. The store is built from pretty much individuals or a group of people making apps that are open source, free, and not collecting your data. I've gotten most of my apps from here, and it's kind of the best place to start if you're looking for something. But if you need something really, really specific, then don't be afraid going on Aurora store. So with banking, although I could easily, you know, launch up a browser through DuckDuckGo and pretty much log into my bank normally, I wanted to give the Aurora store a shot to see what it was like. I actually got my bank logged in and I got access to all my accounts and moving stuff around, which is awesome. I never thought I would even have the ability to do that. But yeah, I was so jazzed when I could actually install my banking app and it just worked. I didn't really have to use the browser all the time or either have it connected to either a mobile data or a Wi-Fi as it was. But yeah, I was more than willing to make the sacrifice of using a browser for all my banking, but I guess the Aurora store just made it easier. So yeah, the Aurora store can, you know, it's not bad all the time. You just gotta, you know, be mindful of the apps you download or the system will suck you back in. All right, just talking about the browser, as I said, I use DuckDuckGo for my banking and worked just great. If you have another anti-Google browser, then go for that. Or you can even get up to some dark web antics by launching the Tor browser, which you can come pre-installed. Gaming is a category on the F-Droid store. Not to say that it's bad or anything, or that there are bad gaming apps. You won't find some like, I can't believe I'm about to say this, you won't find like AAA mobile games like Angry Birds or like Fortnite and Apex Legends. You won't find any of that on the Android store. You will find a lot of hidden gems on there. Or I found like this really odd one, which is like a really old Retroid game or something. It's got like, it's got Galaga, it's got Snake and Tetris on it. And I just open it up every now and then just to, you know, kill time or whatever, but it still works. Let's talk about performance in terms of battery. Oh my God, battery is insane. Because you're running not a Google OS or an Android OS or even just an Apple OS that's always sending data out, which by the way, they do. I'm sorry, they do send data out every time you reconnect with an internet. They've stored a bit of data that's sending it off. Why do you think you're running at like 60% out of a brand new iPhone at the end of the day? Guess what? That's why. But yeah, I'd be halfway through my day and I'd still have about 99% or 98%. So that's not an exaggeration. What am I sitting on at now? Did this even charge last night? It is oh my God. It is currently 12:06 on a Sunday and I am sitting at 100%. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. I've got to do that. and it's tiny. You won't be able to see it. It is still sitting at 100% because it's not sending so much data out constantly. I'm able to retain basically 5 days of battery life. It is insane. I was just shocked on that. I always wondered why my Note 10 was either at 70 or 60% sometimes when I'd even barely use it. Now I know why, and it's gobsmacks me. But yeah, at the end of the day, with my Pixel 5 running Calyx, I'm either running at about 97 by the end of the day or maybe a light 96, but it's still insane on how much battery life. And by the way, this isn't a brand new phone either. Like, this has been used. I looked at my order and it specifically said secondhand, used well, or like whatever it was, or like it was used but in great condition, meaning that obviously there's like, I think they were claiming like an 85 to about a 90% battery degradation within that year. So someone has used this phone before me and has degraded the battery. The fact that I'm still getting like 100 to almost like not even 5% loss of my battery is that's just incredible on how much like performance I have, or just how much battery I have, and it's absolutely insane. Now, of course, it's not like locked or anything. When it gets into a little bit more battery like intensive tasks such as gaming or map navigation with location, I would say it chews it a little bit, but like it's just normal use of like if you were to have your location on, or if you were to actually, you know, be running a game. It's basically normal expendage of battery that you've actually used. It's like a normal, like if you were to open a game up or even just use maps for about half an hour in terms of navigation, you probably lose about what, like 10%. I'd probably be losing 8% to 10% as well if I was doing that with this. So like the fact that it could just sit on standby constantly and not use battery is just fantastic. I'm just going on about the battery. It's awesome. The battery is insane. Alright, time for some other little settings such as navigation. I've used 2 pre-installed apps navigations and they did not work in the terms of what I actually needed for. They were great, they kind of got me from point A to point B, but in terms of actual map navigation, it was a bit tricky, being that I need to either fill in the exact address to like the location I would be, or maybe the point would just be like a little bit off or so. And the autofilling kind of sucked, like as in, usually if I wanted to go somewhere, let's say Bounce Inc. in Glen Iris, usually I'd just type in Bounce Glen Iris into Google Maps and it would just kind of like, Google Maps would just kind of autofill it and just give me a route anyway. You can't really do that with like a DeGoogled mapping service. The 2 that come pre-installed though, there is Organic Maps and OSM and with a colon. That's literally just what it's called. I used those 2 and they were a definite hit and miss. I downloaded a new one which was from Aurora, which in my opinion definitely works a lot better. Magic Earth. Magic Earth definitely works. You can get it from the Aurora store or the Google Play Store. They pretty much claim that they are open source and pretty much, you know, they don't track your data. You know, they don't sell your data to Google especially. But those other 2 apps I did use, they kind of worked, but when I needed like really specific locations or really a specific point that was in a dense city like Melbourne, it kind of fell short a little bit. It's great that we actually get to download the maps onto our phones and just use them offline, which is great. I pretty much just downloaded the whole Australia, and you know, if you wanted to use maps offline, then you could, and it still works. But yeah, I found it a little bit of a hit and miss. However, with Magic Earth, which probably is the better in terms of autofilling, in terms of autofilling places that I want to search, or triangulations of my actuals to make your search better. Yes, it's from the G Store or the Aurora Store, but the company have claimed not to track or sell your data, so I'm happy with that. Some other little things such as weather, note-taking, calendar, calculator, task reminders, or habit apps are your thing, then don't worry, they exist, either coming with the pre-installed Calyx OS or downloading them from the F-Droid store if you can find some, or better yet, the Aurora store. But yeah, you can definitely still find those apps. You're not like going back to the Stone Age. You'll be fine. Another great thing In terms of bloatware when actually setting up the device, when you're installing everything, you can customize that to however you want it. You can have full bloatware of whatever you want or zero bloatware. So you can really get a bare bones phone. Heck, if you really wanted to, you can just have nothing on and just be a bare bones phone. Like no dialer, no F-Droid store. You could just be blank and you'll be kind of stuck. So you got a sideload thing. So keep that in mind. Final thoughts. So do I recommend de-Googling yourself? That's tough because it's not that it's easy to get into. There are sites that are selling already de-Googled phones, but for a bit of a markup of what that device and you're getting for. But really, and in terms of actually doing it yourself, it's not too bad once you find a good guide. But what you really need to ask yourself is that, are you prepared to ditch social media altogether? So mainstream social media, and pretty much ditch Google and all of its services combined. That's like the bigger question. And if you say no, then obviously I'd say de-Googling's not for you. But if you're more than willing to give it a shot, I'd say it is like buying a new phone. So obviously there's that expense into it. There are definitely tutorials online which do make it easier to do. I had a bit of a trouble with mine, so more than likely the community's got your back. So just ask the community. In terms of ease to get into it, if you're techie enough to do it, like you understand command line, or you don't, in terms, I mean, I don't really understand command line. I just know basic stuff of command line to how to get it to do. Basically, how to get it to do things. And there are definitely operating systems that it's not like super alien to you. Like Calyx OS I think is the best stepping stone into having a de-Googled phone because it's pretty friendly. Like in terms of how it looks and how it operates, it's very friendly and super familiar. The only difference is you're getting the F-Droid store and the Aurora store and you're replacing just a handful of apps. With Calyx OS is a good stepping stone. Graphene OS is definitely, I wouldn't say it's more advanced, like you can still make it a good phone, but it comes very bare bones and you're kind of expected to do stuff for yourself. Then there is Ubuntu Touch, which is a more gesture navigation, which I don't imagine a lot of people would like. I mean, technically a phone is all gesture navigation, but yeah, with Ubuntu Touch, from what I've seen, it's very like using like different swiping orientations in terms of fingers. And knowing that, it also kind of depends on your situation of how far you're into Google. Like, are you super in it where you're using like Google Home and all the other Google stuff? Like, is everything connected? And I'm imagining for people there at Apple, you're pretty much stuck in that Garden of Eden. Like if you own an iPhone, I can guarantee you own a Mac, you have iCloud, you probably have an Apple Watch. I'm not like assuming, I'm just kind of guessing. I know there are people out there who are deep into Apple and definitely have iTunes, that's for sure. I used to have iTunes a long time ago. But other than that, like, that's going to be harder for you to actually get out and rip the wires off because you're very much stuck in that garden and it's kind of hard to move things out and get it all out. And I've seen the nightmare of what someone's gone through, and I am sorry. I'm sorry. But it is possible, it's not impossible. But for me, it was a fun experience going through the steps to de-Google and load in the actual OS and boot too as well. Like, and when I finally saw it, it was a successful boot. I was over the moon and I was almost like relearning a new phone. I was jazzed about using my phone again because with them. But other than that, I've definitely taken a step into the whole de-Googling life. It's definitely, I feel free. That is a noticeable thing. When I first was using it, I just felt free. And that was probably the most important thing that I could say that comes to anyone. But like I said before, if you're not into tech, it's going to be a really hard thing to do and very challenging switch to do because not only are you relearning a new operating system for your phone, you're either loading it yourself and doing all these other complicated tasks, but also like transferring things over and just ditching all that. So I would say it's not for everyone, but I would encourage the attempt to either just look into it and really think about the implications of what you're about to do and really think about the stuff that you need a smartphone to do is what's going to suit for you. For me, de-Googling suited for me, and I think it's going to suit for everyone of the bases that I just covered. If you're interested in exploring this idea, I beg you to please do all the research you can and evaluate whether you can operate your daily functions And if you're someone wanting to switch, then go for it. It's gonna be a big change to your quality of life. But remember, if you don't like it, you can always switch back. It's pretty easy. It's real easy to get back into the system that was made to be that way. It's easy to get in, but harder to get out. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed of actually, watching this. It's been taking me 4 weeks to actually come up with this and explore all this, and been pain. I've also got something along the sides I kind of hinted to in the actual video that's coming up that's quite important to me. So that's why I'm either gonna be maybe like 2 or 3 weeks out from doing videos, but I'll try and catch up. But I got a lot of things coming up ahead. Anyway, that's gonna do it for me. So thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this video, please click the links and annotations, more videos that I've done. Like, comment, and subscribe today. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Cool. Bye-bye.